Does your day look like as a chartered accountant and a lecturer?
Not many young chartered accountants are keen to become lecturers. I didn't have a horrible experience in corporate,
Yeah.
but I did feel starved from human engagement.
Hi guys, welcome back to another video. My name is Precious Molepo, and today I am joined by Reuben Davids, a chartered accountant as well as a lecturer at the University of the Witwatersrand. Hi Reuben.
Hi, Precious.
Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me. to be here with
I
you.
stumbled across your content online. So you make content centered at giving study tips as well as motivational videos. I actually watched a few before this interview.
Okay.
And you're a lecturer. So I don't think it's very common for chartered accountants to embark on the journey without having the intention to go into business, whether it's to start a business, whether it's to run a business, or to be the integral part of it through accounting or finance. Why did you decide to go the academic route?
Interesting question. So I opened myself to different opportunities. I went into academic articles just to sort of see what it's like. I've always been someone who liked opening themselves up to different options because I don't like being forced into a decision off the
Yeah.
bat. So I would always want to open up my horizon and then figure out what I like. And so I did academic articles and then also did some articles in corporate. And I realized I really like the lecturing space. I love
Okay.
engaging with students. I'm very extroverted. So the lecturing space really spoke to my personality and character. And so
So you saw
Yes, I
that during
ended
your academic articles.
100%. Well, actually before that, because I also
Okay.
did some tutoring as a student
Ooh.
as well. And I was like, this seems nice, you know.
So even that one-on-one sparked your passion for public speaking.
Definitely. Speaking of spark, I think, once you teach something to someone and they do, oh, that's what it meant. And I think getting that every day is quite an amazing
That's
feeling.
a nice feeling, I won't
Yeah.
lie. I've had my
Yeah.
fair share of tutoring. Apart from my gap learning company that I'm currently running and tutoring there, I tutored in high school, as
Okay.
in university to high school students as well. But we'll get there. We'll get there. I just want to find out what does your day look like as a chartered accountant and a lecturer?
Okay. Right, so let's speak Mondays. Mondays are
Okay.
usually the days that set the tone. So get to work, probably have a cup of rooibos because that's what I really like.
I
drinking.
love the detail.
Yes. And then meetings. So in our school, for example, we have a Monday catch-up meeting with all the lecturers in our school specifically. So everybody touches base. We speak about the week. We speak about progress, assessment dates, deadlines, etc.
Before you continue, let's just touch on what do you lecture?
What do I lecture? I
Yes.
lecture financial management and management accounting.
Oh, so you're the guy when we're stuck there, or when students at home are stuck there to call up.
Yes, definitely.
Okay.
So we would have our divisional meeting, and then you go off into your day. And my day is composed of setting out time for consultations, setting out time for setting or marking assessments, and then also preparing for lectures. So depending on what comes first, it's really dependent on the time. If I lecture on a Tuesday morning, I'd be preparing the whole Monday, basically.
Okay.
If I have an assessment due over the next 2 weeks, I'd be setting that. So that really depends on what happens, but it would usually be made up of that. Consultation hours, preparing for lectures, setting or marking assessments.
Okay. So what, that takes the whole day?
Yes, it can.
Okay.
It can definitely. Yeah.
So no remote working for you?
We can
right.
if possible, especially around marking times, because it's a bit difficult to mark in the office, students coming in and out, they'd be disturbing that. So we do tend to sometimes do remote work.
Okay, so you have that flexibility of choosing to work from home, or does it depend on whether you're lecturing on that day, or can you go home immediately after lecturing? How is that set up?
You can in certain instances go home after your day is done if you need to mark or whatever, but you really do have flexibility. Obviously, I can't lecture from home. I
Yes.
need to be in class.
Yes.
So
And do you have like a manager above you that says, okay, Reuben, today I want you in the office for the whole day, etc.? I'm just trying to compare this to corporate.
Yeah. Depending on the institutions where you are,
Okay.
I have been in an institution where I was expected to be in the office, even though I'm not lecturing. Currently, there tends to be a bit more flexibility. So depending on your work deadlines, if there's meetings or not,
Yeah.
they'll communicate that up front.
Okay.
So you'd really sort of get guidance from them in that regard, yes.
So it depends on the institution. All right, happy with that. Do you recommend lecturing to someone that's less outspoken, maybe a bit more reserved?
I think it's a good idea. And I'm going to refer to introverts in this regard because I would assume,
Yes.
usually the introverts are the people who are reserved.
Yeah.
I've ran into some colleagues who are very introverted. They
Okay.
really don't like engaging with people at all. But they're
Interesting
brilliant
career
lecturers.
path.
Yes, brilliant lecturers. And I keep laughing at them because I'm like, do you want to talk or do you not want to talk today? Because I know it can be draining for you standing in front of a group of students. But I think someone who is reserved and not as extroverted as myself usually thinks a lot and they're able to rationalize their thoughts.
Okay.
So they are people who can package a delivery very well. Just because you're reserved doesn't mean you can't talk. And funny enough, when a lecturer stands in front of a class, it's very difficult to tell whether they're introvert or extrovert because we all
Okay.
present to such a big audience.
Yes.
So if you're reserved, I think you're more than welcome to try it out. I
Okay.
think the only thing that I've seen with my introverted colleagues is they tend to isolate themselves after a lecture just so that they can recharge because they've engaged so much.
Is this
with other
isolating
people.
themselves like from the other staff members or from students as well?
It depends on what their comfort is like. Sometimes it could be isolating themselves from students mainly.
Okay.
Because students it's an energy intensive engagement. They want to you to answer their questions. They want you to
Yeah.
clarify their uncertainties. And so sometimes just getting a break from that tends to recharge one a little bit. So
Yeah.
yes.
So you're passionate about public speaking. I saw that on your Instagram page. Do you still get nervous when you lecture to, I'm guessing, 300, 400 students, or is it less?
400,
400.
450 to 900, it depends.
Oh,
yes.
to 900.
Yes, that's
okay.
my current class.
Oh, hectic. How do you
Yeah.
manage that? Do you get nervous?
Yes. I think everyone does get nervous, regardless of how comfortable they are with public speaking. So I definitely do get nervous.
Nervous
it's
about
just-
what? What do you?
It's
scares
just
you?
about, will the audience receive what you're trying to tell them?
Okay.
Right? It's about breaking the ice with your audience. And I mean, if you have the Monday morning slot that is at 8 o'clock, it's very difficult to try and break through people because they're still waking up from the weekend.
Yeah, I can imagine.
So, but it usually fades after like 10 to 15 minutes and then it's smooth sailing from there on.
So is it like what, when you crack a joke, will they receive it well?
Yes.
Kind of thing? Okay.
Yes, I do try and do those quite a lot in class. So just so that we can break the ice and make everybody comfortable.
Yeah. Okay. And have you always wanted to become a lecturer? Or when did that desire come?
I think it came after my experience with corporate. And I didn't have a horrible experience in corporate.
Yeah.
But I did feel starved from human engagement because you often are placed in a particular office or in a cubicle.
Yes.
You do work, you speak with 1 to 2 people a day, and you go back home.
Yeah.
And for me personally, it didn't feel like I was making an impact. And I was making an impact because, I mean, if you're working on an audit file
Yeah.
and you do work and you submit work papers and, that's meeting objectives. But it was very isolating for me. It almost felt like we're back in 2020 and I'm in a little cubicle in my house,
Okay.
So ultimately, it gives me a lot of satisfaction engaging with people on a regular basis. And that's how I said, no, I really want to come back into the lecturing space.
And the teams, like working in teams, I know in audit you work in teams and you can chat as you work. When you're working from the office, was that not sufficient?
It was enough. I built some great relationships with my colleagues. But again, it ended there.
Okay.
And it's just the same 5 people for the next 2 months.
Yeah.
I enjoy seeing different faces, different people, different personalities. And yeah, that was not enough.
Okay. So it wasn't audit that you ran away from. It was what? The corporate space.
It's the corporate space and how limited, your human interaction is
Okay.
over there. Yeah, it's more laptop than anything else.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Shame. It really is. Do you think you'd ever go back?
I may or may not.
Yeah. I mean, you're still very early in your career.
Still very early in my career. I think I would go back if it still allows me the human interaction with people. But currently, I really, really love and enjoy what I do. So it's not even something I'm thinking about at the moment.
So when does like having a master's and PhD become a requirement when it comes to lecturing?
It depends on the rank.
Okay.
So there are ranks in the academic space. You do get lecturer, senior lecturer, associate professor, professor, doctor. So depending on which level you are at, it is very important to have a master's and of course your PhD, because ultimately I think as a lecturer, yes, we share knowledge, but you also want to produce
Yes.
knowledge. And so you need to constantly be engaged with subject matter. And that's why furthering your studies yourself as well is important for that, because
Yeah.
you need to be able to have a holistic view of your
Okay.
subject matter. So yeah, it really does play a role in your rank.
Do you think you're gonna get your master's?
100%.
And in
I
what?
definitely will.
I feel like that's the big question. Like,
Yes.
how do you decide what you get a master's in?
Yeah, no, definitely. Like I said, I am in the financial management and managerial accounting space. So I would pivot towards that direction when it comes to me doing my master's studies.
Let me not assume everyone at home knows your. So you have a degree and a postgraduate qualification and CASA designation. Okay,
Correct.
great.
Yes.
So you said, sorry, for your master's, you want to?
I would pursue something that leans more towards the financial management and managerial accounting space,
Okay.
which is currently my subject area of specialization.
Okay.
So I would definitely go in that direction.
All right, all
Enjoy
right.
it. Yeah.
I mean, back when I was in university, I was thinking about, okay, if I would get a master's, what would I get a master's in?
Yeah.
And I think what I was looking at, because eventually I do want to be like on the board of a company or a few, if I'm lucky.
Yes.
And I was actually using that as a guideline to see, okay, what do the board of directors, what qualifications do they have?
Absolutely.
So what direction can I go to get hired to be on the board of directors?
Definitely.
Yeah, and a lot of the things are, Forex and international trade.
Yes.
And so it's very specialized.
Yes.
Is that the same for finance as well?
I definitely think so. Ultimately, if you do want to sit on boards or wherever you choose to position yourself, I think it's important to identify, okay, this is my subject area.
Yeah.
And I need to now go into that, because I mean, yes, it's good to be a jack of all trades, but
Yeah.
boards really have different individuals for that very reason.
Yeah.
So you need to bring a specific skill in that regard. So 100%. And the nice thing with masters is, there's so many masters with specialization in, so you can really do a lot more research on that and see what is more fitting for the role and the voice you want to have in a board context. For example.
I think that's also what scares me, the fact that it's so specialized and it's so, like, okay, I get a master's in taxation, for example. I'm going to be limited in taxation. Would you say that's the case?
I don't think you'd be limited. I think ultimately as a CA, you still have interests in the 4 disciplines and you can still have a voice in the 4 disciplines.
Okay.
So just because you're specializing in something doesn't mean you're limited to that. Like, in as much as I love the financial management and managerial accounting space, I also love auditing. I mean, I have a background in auditing. So that doesn't mean I don't have a voice in it. It just means I enjoy financial management a bit more. So just because you specialize doesn't mean you are unable to have a voice in the other subject
That's
areas.
actually a nice way of looking at it.
Definitely.
Yeah. So what are some of the challenges you faced as a lecturer?
Ooh, do you have time? Okay. I think it's communicating the importance of the subject matter to students.
Okay.
I'm still in the earlier stages of the Bachelor of Accounting degree. I mainly in the second year space. And when a student is in their second year, I don't think they've really solidified what they want to do, where they want to be, what are their study methods.
Yes.
And many of them undermine the importance of being engaged. And so one of the challenges is really managing the disappointment when a student comes to you and either says they don't know anything, or they come the day before a major test or an exam and they want to ask questions that they should have been asking since the start. I mean, it's managing that frustration. You know, it's the thing is, I know you're capable of so much. By virtue of you being in my class, you have so much potential. And I really become, and I take it personal when students
Is it?
don't regard that potential in
Okay.
their lives. So it's really okay, I'm upset.
Yeah.
How do I engage with the student in a way that I'll still be able to motivate them and tell them, okay, you'll be able to do it, but also be stern and discipline them and say, but why are you only coming now? You should have been here 2-3 weeks ago, and then we would have worked through it together. So that's definitely one of the areas I think, and some of my academic colleagues can agree, marking is a ship. You know, marking can be very time consuming. And again, managing the frustration, because you're sitting with a paper and you can see a student is writing foreign things on that paper and you're like, I don't understand, well, you're not in my class.
Yeah.
You know, and you want to write a whole long essay and say, what are you doing on this paper? You know, again, because I believe in my students.
Yeah.
And I believe they have so much to offer, and I want them to offer that. I really regard them with the highest quality. And I expect them to show up like that. And so it's just managing the disappointment that it comes with.
Oh, wow.
Also, when you get student feedback, sometimes, I mean, we're all individuals. Sometimes you think students received something in a particular way and they don't. You know, I have had moments in my class where I mention something and it's crickets, and you can just see
Okay.
blank faces. And now it's probing
So you
from
can
them.
actually tell
100%.
when a student
Yes.
doesn't understand.
There'll be a time when nobody nods in class.
So
and
the
you just
nodding
like,
is the indication.
yeah, no, you guys don't understand what I'm saying, do you? So, yeah, so it's then probing, okay, guys, where did you lose me? And then we go back and we rebuild from that. So those are some of the challenges, definitely.
Okay, so you actually saying that you take it personally
Yeah.
when a student doesn't reach their full potential.
Yes.
It takes me to when I was tutoring. I was in university tutoring high school, and you would basically, I mean, there's a lot of factors at play. It's not just how well you did the tutoring or how well you did the lecturing in your case, but there's other elements that come at play, like whether the student studied, did they put in the work afterwards, etc. So how do they measure your performance as a lecturer, especially because it's not only your role that will help a student pass. They also have their individual work that they need to do.
Definitely. There's different measures in place. They look at how do you deliver your academic material.
Okay.
And it can take various forms. Most institutions have a learning platform. When I studied at the University of the Free State, we used Blackboard, for
Okay.
example.
I also did.
Right? So they would look at how do you integrate, you know, the activities that Blackboard has to enhance the student's learning experience. We sometimes get peer evaluated. So you get seniors who come and sit in your lecture and they look at how do you actually lecture, and they give you feedback. You know, they're very critical sometimes.
Is it? What kind of feedback do they give?
Feedback could be anything from the technical material
Okay.
to classroom management to
Okay, so what, like people are talking and you're not doing
Yes.
anything about it? All
yes, to do you create a space for students to ask questions and engage?
right. So
Right.
I'd pause and see if there's any question. Okay.
Definitely. So there's a lot of nuances that goes into that evaluation.
Okay.
We also have student evaluations, of course. So where students actually give feedback on how they've experienced the lecturer throughout, you know, the course, and they ask various questions around that. Does he give you homework? Does he make you feel comfortable to ask questions? All of those questions are posed, and as a university student, you would know what questions you sort of get asked. And I think it's important for students again to also take that serious,
Yeah.
because they are the first, they're your customer.
Yes.
And they are the ones who can
Yes.
tell you where you need to improve. So they use that as well. We also look at throughput rates. Definitely, you know, if your whole class is failing throughout the year, then there is cause for concern.
Okay.
You know,
So what if it's
so-
just a hard module? difficult module.
There's grace for that.
Okay.
So they'll understand that, okay, this is one of those modules that students technically or generally will struggle with. So we do take that into consideration, but it's also managed very strictly. So yes, those are some of the measures in place.
Okay, and I'm sure it's pretty nerve-wracking when you have a peer review.
It definitely is. I mean, you have a doctor who's a specialist in the subject area sitting in your class.
Yeah.
And, they know a lot more than you do, and they know that, there's students, yes, can give feedback, but they can tell you, okay, from a technical perspective, this is where you went wrong or right.
Okay, so it's it's specific to your subject as well.
Usually it can be. It depends. It really depends.
Okay, can it not be subjective though? What if there's something you feel as a lecturer that students can cover at home? It's not necessary for you to touch on. And then some other lecturer feels like, no, this is pretty crucial. Do they take that into consideration?
They do. And it also really depends on the learning outcome.
Oh, I see.
So I think if it's something that has a very difficult or technical learning objective, you can't go tell students to go study this at home.
Okay.
So you sort of need to, even if they have to do their own work, you have to help them bridge the gap one way or the other.
Okay, so there are guidelines.
There are guidelines.
Interesting. Definitely. And then how does leave work? Like, because there's student breaks and vacations, etc. Do you get annual leave? Can you apply for sick leave? How does that work?
Yeah, we do get the standard sick leave. There is annual leave that you apply for. And just because students are on semester break doesn't mean lecturers are on break.
Oh.
No, we work right through.
Oh, wow.
So
okay, I assumed.
If I want to have a break with the students, I need to take my annual leave for that.
Okay.
That being said, I think it's very carefully managed. You can't take annual leave if you have to lecture. Unless it's, no.
Okay.
I think obviously sick leave, dependent on how severe the situation is. If you have a severe flu, I don't think it's advisable that you go and stand in front of a whole class of students.
Yes, actually.
So I think annual leave needs to be planned carefully around timelines. When are exams being written? Lectures happening? When are you marking? So we do definitely manage that very carefully as well, I think, as the employee.
Okay, and this is a full-time role, you as a lecturer?
Yes, it is a full-time role.
I don't know why in my head I just imagine that, okay, lectures end at 1 and then there's another job
and there's
after
another
that.
job that they it looks like that, but many of them actually go home to go and do further work. Like I said to you, for example, you need to do research as a lecturer, so you can create more knowledge, and they would be doing that in that time. So it's not, okay, my work day is done, I'm going to go and rest for the day.
Yes. All right, speak us through the interview process.
Okay, interesting. The interview process, in most or all of the interviews I've been in, I'm just going to speak generally first.
Yeah.
It was really culture fit based,
Okay.
Would you be able to fit in with the culture of the environment that you want to go into? If you want to be in the academic space, for example, there has to be some kind of demonstration that you are a lecturer and that you do have subject matter knowledge, So sometimes they would request you to present a lecture to a panel.
Okay. Did you have to do that?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
And they will judge you based on that.
Okay.
They speak to, obviously, then your past experience, why you want to be in this, which comes, again, from a culture fit perspective, the industry can be very rewarding financially, but I don't think you go into lecturing like that. And for example, if I was an interviewer, and somebody says, "Oh no, I'm just here for the money," I'd be like, "You have students to deal with." I don't think that is sufficient motivation to be in this space, because it's very hard work. So, yeah, definitely, I think there is a technical aspect involved in there to probe your experience, your expertise. You can't be a tax specialist and then walk into an interview and say, "I want to lecture auditing."
Okay.
How do you defend that?
Course. Yeah.
How does your experience speak to that subject area? So that is also, I think, very important to take into consideration, because those technicalities will play a role.
Yes, that makes sense.
So yeah, that's sort of the interview process, and then obviously they get to know you as an individual and as a professional as well.
Does this happen in one day, or do you have different rounds of interviews?
It depends. I personally, I think I've had both. I've had one where it was a once-off thing, and then you got the response. And in other instances, I've had more than one. interview process. So yes, you then went through.
Okay, then just give us like one question that they asked, if you remember.
If I remember, something like,
Something you struggled to answer, or something that haunted you, like when you left.
it would be, how do you manage a disruptive class?
Okay.
Almost, or students who are not paying attention and disrupting other students. You know, that's a touchy one because you need to be professional.
Yeah. I
but
mean,
at
it's
the
not
same
high
time-
school, so it's a
Yes,
different
not-
approach.
yes, definitely. So I can't tell you to go stand in the corner.
Yeah.
You know, so it really forces one to dig deep and speak to their own past experience of classroom management.
Okay.
Yeah, that was a difficult one.
Do you remember
because
how
then-
you answered?
How did I answer? I can give you an answer now, but I can't remember how I answered back then.
Okay, I'm actually curious. How did you manage it?
I think you try your best to not be personal and pinpoint unless the situation calls for it.
Okay.
But I'm the type of lecturer who would stand in class and be like, okay, someone besides me is talking. What's happening?
Okay.
Why? Is there a question? And that immediately centers the class. Because if I see a particular section of the hall is talking, or there's commotion.
I like that you end with, why is there a question?
Yes,
I like
yes.
that. Because I would keep quiet as well if I didn't
I'd
have
be like,
one.
oh, sorry, I see there's something happening that side of the class. Is there a question? Can I assist with something? No, okay. But if there is one, please raise your hand and then we'll address it as a class.
Nice,
And
very
then
professional.
That centralizes it again.
Okay.
So yes.
Nice. Someone wants to become a lecturer, they're a chartered accountant. What advice are you giving them?
Interesting. One, like I said, the master's thing is very important. Many institutions look at that, but there's also a lot of institutions that afford part-time lecturing positions, and I think that's a
Okay.
brilliant one if you're still in industry and you want to break into the academic space. The nice thing about part-time lecturing is institutions really welcome part-time lecturers because they literally have a foot in industry. So when they come in the classroom, they really bring that personal and practical expertise into the
Nice.
lecture hall. So there's really, I think, a huge demand for that.
Okay.
I looked for that rigorously
Is
when I
it?
wanted to get into the industry, just so
Yeah.
that I can have the academic experience to eventually be able to get into, a full-time position. So if you want to make it in and you're struggling to get into a full-time position, if it's not available, definitely try out a part-time lecturing position. They'll welcome you with open arms because
Yeah.
if you are, for example, an auditor and you want to lecture, and they'll say, okay, fine, you are an auditor, come and share your expertise with our students. And that paves your way because hopefully if you do very well, you can then just stay on with that institution and be employed full time. So I think that's one of the easiest and best ways to really get back into the space. Otherwise, if that's not an option for you, I would definitely say pursue your master's because then that for me demonstrates your interest in academia. And that would really go a long way when you
Yeah.
apply.
Okay. So you recently started your role as a lecturer at WITS.
Yeah.
So you are familiar with the job market currently, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
Are there a lot of lecturer positions? Because, I mean, you spoke about how masters might put you ahead. And
Yeah. I think I'll answer from my experience with LinkedIn.
Yes.
I've literally gone and filtered specifically for that. And
Okay.
I saw that there are actually quite a number of positions
Okay.
like that. I've also, from conversations and in networking, you hear in industry that, there's demand. So there really is a demand for lecturers. I
Okay.
mean, not many young chartered accountants are keen to become lecturers. So there definitely is a demand for that, I think.
Okay. Do they have any remote lecturing jobs? That's something I would be interested in.
There is.
Really?
There are remote institutions as a whole.
Okay.
So I have colleagues who are full-time remote lecturers and they don't meet students face-to-face at all. So, yeah.
Something to consider.
Yes. And I mean, if you think about institutions who have online courses, definitely,
Yeah.
you'd need to be in an online
Actually,
space.
yes.
So definitely,
Okay.
yes.
So now to the student-focused questions.
Okay.
What separates a student who just passes to an A student?
Sure. You need to say, this is where I went wrong. This is the feedback I've received. This is how I'm going to fix it. And that's the most important part. And then,
Advice to anyone that is dealing with failure, because I think that's a huge thing along the CASS stream.
100%.